CP, based on the Heat series, but really everything in totality, what do you think the biggest need for the Knicks this offseason is?
So I would put it in three things. Number one, 3-point shooting badly. In the regular season, they were a bad 3-point shooting team. They have been that way since Tibbs got here. They're just not an efficient 3-point shooting team, and that carried over into the playoffs. I had always wondered if a team like the Knicks, who are near the bottom of the league in effective field goal percentage, could have a good offense into the playoffs. It was able to work against the Cavs, but against the Heat, it was just too many bricklayers, man. They have to address the need for shooting. Secondly, I think they have to figure out offensively whether or not this is the right system for the personnel that they have, because along with the bottom of the league shooting numbers, the Knicks for the last 3 years are also near last in almost every passing statistic. They don't move the ball well. They don't generate enough assists. And so you have to figure out, is this offense right for the personnel that we have? Do we have the right decision makers, high IQ players that can make this work? Jalen Brunson certainly has proven to be that, but Julius Randle has been shaky in that regard. So I think that needs to be addressed. And then lastly, I think they need to go out and get another wing defender. Josh Hart, Quentin Grimes, they certainly play hard. They play physical. They're good defenders, but I think at times they are undersized at that position. And so I think the Knicks need to go out there and try to get a 3-and-D wing. They don't grow on trees, but I think that's what they need to address either in the draft or free agency.
And John, seeing this Knicks team across the season, but particularly in the postseason, as you did, what would you do if you're Leon Rose? Put your team president cap on for a second. What would your biggest priority be if you were running the Knicks?
Again, I agree with CP. I think with Brunson, they have the star that's going to draw extra attention from opposing defenses, and they need the right complements for him. That includes one, shooting, and then two, maybe a sort of a 4 or 5 guy who can distribute the ball, right? Like if he's going to draw that extra defender, who's he passing to, and is that guy going to make the right decisions? Like you would like a Draymond Green who could shoot. And obviously that's as good as it gets when it comes from a 4 or 5. But maybe Randall isn't the best complement, right? Like you saw a lot in that series where 2 came to Brunson, the ball moved, it got to Julius Randle, and it stopped. Right? And sometimes he'd score out of that. He'd ISO and score. But there were other times where he'd take a bad shot or he'd just stop it, and they'd end up late in the clock and not get a good shot. So I think that it has to come in a mentality, the sort of 0.5 mentality that a lot of teams talk about, where once it starts moving, it can't stop, right? And Thibodeau talks that all the time. Like you ask him, he said, "Yeah, trust the pass. The ball's got to move," but that didn't translate to the guys on the floor.
Yeah, I would say with Randall, I don't think that was like every time he got the ball, he had tunnel vision. I thought he moved it pretty well for stretches of the postseason. I think the issue was also on the other side of the ball, where he wasn't giving you 100% when he was rotating, when he was getting out to shooters. Each time he was on the floor, sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't. But interesting to see what happens with Julius Randle. We'll get to that in a bit. But one thing I'm curious about is, like, do they just go see a minor move as a way to improve this roster, or do you look at a bigger move as a way to improve the roster? Because either way, you have to improve. I don't know if you fall backwards again, just like you did after making the playoffs against the Hawks. I don't think that's going to sit well with everybody. So you got to improve. And I know that at least internally there's been internal discussions about some bigger names players who could help with shooting, certainly, but it would cost a lot to get those players. I don't know exactly what their thinking is right now, but those scenarios had been discussed.